All right, good day. It's another good day of riding advice, or riding. I forgot what I call it. Riding advice, riding advice while riding, something like that. It's really just me giving my opinion on certain things as I think of them. I'm on my way to a writing workshop, which I do at the African American Research Library in Fort Lauderdale once a year, right before they have their big book fair, South Florida Book Fair. And today's, I'm dealing with, I always deal with people that's come for their first time. Many times they've never had a writing workshop before. So I try to do a lot. We've had as many as 20-something people and as little as 5 in the last maybe 5 years, 6 years. I've been doing these workshops, but I always do a good job, or at least I try to cover a lot of things, try to cover some different things. So today, my topic that I'm going to be, one of the topics I'm dealing with at the workshop is the topic I want to talk today about, and that is character development, how do I get there, and dialogue. Those two things, not just thinking of a character, but also the importance of dialogue. And I will probably deal with more with dialogue today than anything else. So we talk about how do you define, or how do you make a character diverse. That was a previous topic that I talked about. And one of the ways was giving them a certain way to talk, right? How do you distinguish Jamaican accent? We just saw Bushmaster in Luke Cage, the African-American dude who mastered the Jamaican accent, or at least one of the Jamaican accents, and he did a good job. That's a movie, and you depend heavily on your actors for that. You do the dialogue, you write the words, but they're the ones that enunciate it. But in comic books, in books, you have to depend on more only your writing. It's nothing, they may pronounce the word wrong in their head when they're reading the story, but it's now, how do they say the things? What are some of the expressions they say? Little colloquialisms, little patterns, little old sayings, all of those things help define a character. And in addition to the physical description, of course, the physical description is one way. He had saggy pants. He looked like he had lost his best friend. His expression on his face brought misery, or she emanated beauty wherever she went. She had a pleasant face. Okay, those things are physical descriptions, physical characteristics, and they're beautiful for stories. But you can also do it through dialogue, and even description about the dialogue. He said very bluntly, "Get out of my face." "¿Qué pasó?" He asked, "What is the problem?" "Wataguan," he said with exuberance as he greeted his friends. "What's going on?" Those different things are getting into the direction where you want to go. I like dialogue because you don't always have to depend on your narration to unfold information. I am a person with a lot of social opinions, particularly about black people and racism and politics. I think all of us do. But in my stories, my characters, or my stories actually, are my commentary to the world on particular subjects and elements. And I tend to avoid being preachy in my narration. Some people do, and some writers do very well with that. I try not to. I try to mostly let my characters share my political beliefs, and I'll get into why I really like that. but I let my characters do that, and I find it to be seamless. I find it to be organic. I find it to be beautiful. Now, I may say in my narration, this is a rotten world, this is a beautiful world, or this is an oppressive world, but that's really where the end of my preachy or opinions really take root. But I find with characters, dialogue, I'm able to I can be angry, I can be hateful, not just by actions, not just by inner thoughts, because that's beautiful for a character to have some feelings of anger and rage. No doubt. You know, even racism can be an inner thought, but until it's spoken on, it's, you know, those just, I mean, and racial acts are really bad as well, and scary acts. All of those things are beautiful, but for dialogue, for it to be said, holy moly, and then to have two characters argue, you can't do that with inner thought. Lie to each other, misdirect. A lot of those things, I'm a verbal person, so I see and operate in life very verbally. You know, I don't really run with a lot of assumption. I don't really run with a lot of nonverbal expressions, you know, point and hand language. So in my stories, my characters say things. Sometimes they say what they mean, sometimes they say things that they don't. So I find that, you know, preachiness is in there. One of the things I also find, and I'm trying to you know, kind of make sure I hit different elements of this subject. But one of the things I find, and I just looked at, gosh, I'm trying to think, was it Luke Cage? Or I guess say Ant-Man and Scandal. Let me just use those two things, right? Ant-Man and Scandal spread the love very evenly. What I liked about Ant-Man, and specifically Ant-Man and the Wasp, is that anybody could say something funny, you know, as opposed to stories where you have one character designated as the Eddie Murphy, the Kevin Hart, you know, the Tiffany Haddish, and they get all the funny lines. Whereas in Ant-Man, everybody may stop and say something funny. Now, I don't think the jokes worked as well in Ant-Man, but they certainly did not have all of the comedy dependent on one comedian. Now, when you write dialogue, sure, you want to have your Gilligan's Island ensemble or your Wizard of Oz ensemble. You want to have the smart professor. You want to have the light-hearted other person. You know, the beauty queen, the rich person. They give everybody all other elements. But, you know, or your Fantastic Four. You want to have people have separate identities. And sometimes, you know, people do, or writers do say, okay, this is the funny guy. Everything he does is funny. He's always going to add the comedy to it. And to me, sometimes that takes away because, one, if you're dealing with a serious story, it's predictable, right? And it takes away from the focus that character has to the actual tenseness. You have one person that's always extra serious, and then you have another person that's extra silly. Why are they working together? Wouldn't a serious person say, dude, there's a flood, you know, there's little monster ticks coming at us, and you are joking and laughing. You're my problem. I can't think straight. Now, if you do like, say, Purge Anarchy, where one of my friend comedians, a young lady I used to represent, Mugga, she jumped in and she represented some real good thought in Purge and First Purge. She did a real good job of not being the designated comedian, but bring in some humoristic lines within the movement of tenseness and seriousness and drama in the story. So I think that, that's part of what I really like in the characters. Now, of course, people, and it's the same thing, not just with comedy, but if you have the smart person always and only thinking of the smart stuff, it gets irritating. Like, there was a show on Netflix, Lost in Space remake, and, the mother and the little black girl, everything they thought of was the smart answer. It was brilliant. And then, halfway, maybe episode 3 or 4, when you pick up on it, you're actually competing with this character now because they're so arrogant with their smarts. You as a viewer may find yourself like me, saying, this chick ain't right. Come on. How many times? It's almost like, somebody playing with children. You're almost too smart to be here. And then again, like I say, sometimes, dumb people get on your nerves. So you don't want to have people too dumb. You want to spread the love or spread the intelligence, spread the humor. And so just as in Luke Cage, season 2, Alfred Witter's character, Mariah, she just said, just burn, just die or whatever. And it was, something that another character might have said, but it's like, we all can say something funny. We all can say something direct. We all can have a moment of brilliance, a good idea. So I think those things are things to think about with characters. Geez, I'll say this. I thought I had more time. I thought I could say all of this stuff in 10 minutes, but I'm already over time. I'm going to have to revisit characters again, not characters, dialogue again, character dialogue again. This was just me ranting. These are like conversations that writers have amongst each other when they go to a writer conference, or these are kind of dialogues you would have in a writer workshop, which I'm getting ready for. I don't know if I'm going to be able to videotape any of these people today, but in the words of an old hip-hop magazine, to all of my writers, screenwriters, comic book writers, and novel writers, right on. That's so corny, but it was a good magazine. Right on, y'all. Peace out.